Okay, it's coming back.
I'm gonna start recording.
Okay,
7:39.
we're already in session, so.
Oh, you're in session.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to,
And you already did the, okay, I'm not gonna do a pledge then.
No, we didn't.
Okay. Okay, we'll call the second special town board meeting to order September 4th, located at 100 West Half Street, the Village Hall, Palmyra, Wisconsin. Certification of compliance with open meetings law,
Yes, I timely posted the agenda.
roll call.
Gajewski,
Here.
Martins,
Here.
Sawyer.
Here, we'll skip the pledge, as I said. Discussion with the Village of Palmyra regarding Town of Palmyra, Village of Palmyra contract for fire and EMS services and any and all matters related to fire and EMS services for the town.
Well, you should have all gotten a newest copy earlier this week after our meeting on Tuesday, which has all the latest and greatest changes, which actually there really weren't any. The only two that would have changed since the last meeting is, and this was more of a request from the fire department in regards to the under fees. We're changing it from October 1st to September 1st of 2024 through August of 2025, and that's mostly because of, just in case, whoever puts together the call list for that particular month, that way we can still give the town on October 1st the call list, or the calls for the entire year that get figured into the fee schedule. And under the dry hydrants, I had Stan put the permitting costs back in, only because you never know what the hell the DNR is gonna do. They might just say tomorrow that, hey, you gotta update your permit every year, so since you were responsible for the permits the last time, you own the properties, it would make sense that those should be in there. So those were the only two changes since the last time. I think the only other, if I remember correctly, the only other outstanding thing that was on your side was finding out about insurance. So, have you gotten any answers on that one, or?
I have not gotten a reply from the insurance company yet.
But that's really not, that's not really much of us have to worry about that. That's still
Yeah.
on you guys, so. With that being said, was there anything else that you feel that needs to be discussed in regards to wording for this evening?
At the last meeting that we met with you and Trustee Wallace, you guys had talked about the jointly owned vehicles and our request to go out for a second quote. And there were some concerns about timelines and the costs and that type of stuff. Big picture of it, I had taken away that you guys were gonna look at your purchasing policy as far as what monetary threshold your department heads had, and then stick some language in there so that we know that there's a certain threshold with the unforeseen or unbudgeted jointly owned type of thing. I don't know, my takeaway from the draft that we got is, with the exception of the dates, everything else that had been in red line before that, the village board has generally agreed to. Is that the correct
Yes.
takeaway? Okay. So we're under, it would be section 8, we had talked about it under C. The language in there, I mean, one way or the other, if the village has concerns, and I think we all mutually as a group understood that if it's a $400 repair, it's gonna get done one way or the other. But if it's something over, if Paul has spending authority up to $2,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is, that would kind of be the starting point threshold of where secondary quotes may be able to be obtained by the town for said repairs.
Well, here it's unleashed, if you will.
you can get repairs at $100, 10,000 bucks, $1 million bucks.
No, I understood, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Stephanie had brought up the concern that if there's a jointly owned vehicle and a repair of $400, that the town is gonna step in and say, hey, we wanna get a second quote for something that's that minor. So, speaking for myself on behalf of the town, I think we were open to the concept of setting a minimum threshold for whatever that repair is.
But if I remember correctly, at the last meeting, you also said that there's only a few vendors, repair places that you can go to, so if there's only two, you know, it's like, what, if it's gonna cost the same at both locations, then,
You don't
does it matter that much?
But you don't know that.
Well, if we have to go drive to Madison or drive to Green Bay to get a vehicle fixed? I mean, I don't know where any of these places are located, I mean, I don't know.
Okay,
No.
okay,
But
I'm
I
taking
mean,
it, you guys are trying to be magnanimous. If it's a $400 thing, nobody's going, you're not gonna,
Right,
make a big
right.
deal out of it.
No,
And
that's
so,
not what there's.
We wouldn't,
right,
but if it's not in the contract language, potentially 3 new people next year might,
Yeah.
or 2, you know what I'm saying?
there's always gotta be an element of trust here.
Well,
So, there has to be.
No.
You have to.
We would like to think so.
Well,
I agree.
okay, we're not gonna get into that. Not gonna get into that. Because, I mean, the village has accepted almost everything you guys have asked for. So I don't really think that there should be any distrust here.
Well, I guess from my point of view, I just don't see why it's a problem agreeing on what the minimum level is and just
But if
putting
it's
it
for
in there.
these guys and they don't care, what difference does it make?
I don't understand.
If it's for the village and they don't care, they've already approved this language, why would you argue with them?
Excuse me a minute, didn't we, at the last meeting, come up with a figure of some kind?
No.
Tim? No?
So you guys, I mean, regardless of what it is, the agreement, I mean, that's kind of where we're at, obviously, with having the whole board and the whole board have conversations
The
as to
main
vet
thing,
through them.
and the main concern that I had, is if something has to get fixed on the joint vehicles that we own, I don't want it sitting there for a long period of time because either we're not agreeing on what quote and where to get it fixed. That should not be happening at all. It should just get fixed instead of sitting there arguing about, okay, well, I wanna go with this place instead of this place, or this place versus that place. Now granted, we should be fiscally responsible in grabbing different quotes and whatever. We do have that in our policies, that they do have to obtain 2 quotes for stuff. So, you know,
I agree,
up to a certain dollar limit, and
go ahead.
I think it's in section C where the town's position is maybe we should set a threshold of, I'm making up a number here, $5,000 that the village would not have to run it by the town. So anything under $5,000, again, that's a number that can be debated. Anything over that can be run by the town. The town has the option to, at that point, look for other quotes if they think that that quote's unreasonable. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
And to
Right.
And
So
because
the
right
way-
now, it's written that everything has to come to the town, whether it's $100 or $200.
And that's why we're suggesting this.
Yes.
And to
Okay,
your point, to
okay.
your point about delaying, we could even put in the town has to
So
respond.
in C, the last sentence, it says the town retains the right to obtain quotes. I would suggest then that we put in the event the estimated repairs exceed $5,000, comma, the town. Does that make sense?
Well, I just wanna know how that would impact our fire department and EMS being able to get their vehicles. You know, I mean, we need their vehicles to be repaired right away.
Okay, I agree with you, Angela. Here's the deal. If something like that happened, okay, you got $8,000 right now, so there's some $8,000 repair.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a hold of me Starling lady behind me here is gonna send out a memo, we gotta have a special board meeting within 24 hours, get it done with PO.
We should put a time, we should put a 48, 24,
I would,
40 hour.
operationally, I wholeheartedly would say if it's not done without a timeline on it, it could be problematic for us. So to their suggestion, yeah, operationally, it could become problematic if there isn't a timeline tied to it, if we have a
I
restriction.
would say 48 hours, we have to respond 40 hours, if we don't, then you're free to do what you need to do.
And the other thing that I
You think
have,
that's-
That would be a
24,
reasonable,
48.
just in general, when you start seeing costs that are near, you know, the $5, $6, $8, $10,000 range, they're usually long-term acquired, items anyway.
This is a repair.
And that's what I'm saying, those are repairs, because it's acquiring the parts and that sort of thing. So it's not uncommon that it could be a minimum of
Could be days.
days at the very least.
I think a couple daes max.
Yeah. So 48 hours would be a
We just
reasonable.
don't want to attend their service, and getting out to fire call, EMS call.
I think I gave this example already, I'm just gonna give it quick, I think the town is already kind of agreeing to a timeline. We had an ambulance fail, not here, elsewhere, while I was driving down the road, impacted the fact that it had to be towed and it has to go quickly into service. In our community now, you know, we're running one ambulance most of the time. So if that ambulance goes down and it's a costly repair, we want that, yes, we authorize a repair because we gotta get it on the street to cover the town and the village the next day or the day after. So we do, I agree with that timeline, and it was a $5,000 repair, very big repair, so we
So
just
what-
need to be able to move.
So when we're talking that example of 5,000, that's total cost.
Mhm.
It's only 2,500
Right,
dollars.
we're okay.
So I think I do agree that the 5,000 sounds like a good total cost. Let us know, what do you guys think?
I mean, 5,000 we just had one small little accident on the squad car and it was $5,000, a tiny one. That's kind of, right now, that's kind of a small number in my opinion.
So
Well, if I can jump in here, it doesn't really matter what the amount is, because you have a right, under this language, to get a second quote. It doesn't mean that they have to accept it. So, I would suggest that you say, the town retains the right to obtain quotes for said repairs, and the resulting quote being provided to the village by the town within 48 hours. That takes care of your problem.
So what you're saying is it's.
Does that sound reasonable?
Working days, 48 hours, it could be a holiday weekend.
No,
Okay.
48
Fine.
hours, period.
Mike,
I agree with
okay,
you.
48's reasonable.
I think it's reasonable.
So as
Okay.
an example, Stan, if I'm reading you correctly, it's like, say if, your quote comes in lower than what we think, then.
We go with your quote, so why
Well,
would we?
depending, because
It
if
doesn't
they-
require you to under here.
Because here's the thing, if
Well,
you,
going back to that trust thing you were talking about earlier, it goes both ways there, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, people are reasonable, but it saves them money.
but here's the other thing too that I want us to think about too. Let's say we get, I'm just gonna throw a number out here, a $7,000 quote. You guys come back and it's 500 5,500. Your quote's a lower quote, but now our vehicle is gonna be out of service a couple days longer. That's another thing that we need to take into consideration, even though that the quote might be a little less and less money up front. If we can't get that vehicle out, we're gonna have a problem,
But under this, right now, this
then
agreement,
we're fine.
you're gonna accept it, you're gonna consider it, you can completely ignore it. For instance, if it has to be towed up to Fond du Lac to get that price, which they're never gonna do, because they're reasonable people too, but if you can get it in and out within, 3 days earlier for the same price,
Then yeah,
And
right,
let's not
We'll
get
do
hung
that.
up totally on the cost too. because
Right.
Part of a quote is the turnaround time.
right.
So if a quote is a little bit higher, but it gets done in half the time,
that's,
So that's the change.
so it's not just the
Right.
the quote cost too, it's the turnaround.
You're not that old.
Jonathan, what's your suggestion on how to word this one?
I think that adding the 48 hours is good. Of course, the board is just gonna have to weigh the two options, whether it's cheaper or the amount of time. That'll just fall on the board, really. So I think it's a fair way to word it that way.
Is that 48 hours from when we're notified to
Yes.
get the whole quote back, or
Yes.
48 hours from when we get the
It
quote?
says, the village shall notify the town in writing, including their quote, prior to commencing any repairs, and then you can obtain quotes for the repairs and provide that quote to the town, or to the village within 48 hours.
Okay.
So after you receive the writing from us.
And I get that, but if it's taken you hypothetically a week to get a quote, 10 days to get a
Yeah.
quote back,
Yep.
and then because you have to go various places, but then the odds of us getting a quote back in 48 hours are pretty slim. So,
You want 12 hours?
Or do you wanna say, we let you know?
I'm trying to understand the
So-
concern here.
Every situation can be unique, whether it be on one of the engines or the ambulance. The ambulance has gotta get right back in service, period.
That was why I used that example.
Yeah,
Or is it just a matter of we let you know in a certain time frame, like, you know,
if some, I can,
within a day, within 24 hours, say, hey, the ambulance is down, I give you a call, say, hey, or call,
We're
or,
gonna get quotes.
or say, hey, ambulance is down, go start getting quotes, we can start getting quotes, and we can,
yeah,
because if it's, because I don't wanna say,
we need a little bit of a description of what to get a quote on. though.
yes, and that's where,
that's where you gotta work with Dan and the chief
Yes.
over there. And
but I mean, if we're letting you know within a certain
Too
time frame.
bad.
Ultimately, if something happens to a vehicle, we notify you, hey, this vehicle's broken, we need quotes. If you wanna, cause you're gonna have to arrange with somebody to come look at it with us anyway. So then we're gonna say, we're gonna get a quote from this. If you want a quote from someone else, tell us who you want it and we can make the arrangements. That
I
work?
guess I'll add to that, if it's a piece of fire apparatus, it does have to be diagnosed and repaired by somebody that is certified as an emergency vehicle repair person. And just like everything else, if they come out to your station and give you that quote, they're charging you to come out and do that service. So, they're coming out, you're paying for them to give you an estimate, now we're waiting for somebody else to give you an estimate, you're gonna get charged for that estimate as well. So we're kinda wasting a little bit of money doing that, just waiting for an estimate. That's just my,
How many different places are there?
there are not a lot of places
We've
that
got,
are.
we've
about
got two,
three in
yeah,
this
2
area.
or 3 in the area right now.
Keep in mind, this just gives us the right to do it, doesn't mean we will in every circumstance.
And the other caveat to that is not just the 48-hour response, it might take the vendor, it might take them a week to 10 days to actually produce a
That's what I
quote as
said.
well, yeah.
But
I'm
if
sorry,
we
I'm
get notified at the same time and we
Yeah.
both start looking for quotes at the same time,
Yeah.
we should be able to come back together roughly.
With a reasonable
And we
time,
should be
yeah.
talking in between with each other, hey, what are you
Well,
seeing, what are
yeah.
we seeing and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that if something breaks, we have to go through this. Again, Dan's gonna get a hold of me, Paul, Blake's gonna get a hold of me. Somebody's gonna get a hold of me, we're gonna act on this right away. I'm gonna let Michelle know if it's a major thing, so she lets these two gentlemen know, because we got this quorum thing we have to worry about. And, we'll go from there, but I'll act on it right away, and I'm sure whoever the powers to be over here that take care of it are gonna act right away too. And if
Oh,
you-
yeah, but we wanna make sure that the
Yeah, I mean,
vehicles
it's,
get back on the road as soon as possible, because it's,
I mean, if something terrible happened, 2 o'clock this morning, I'm probably gonna hear about it by 2:30. You know what I'm saying, if we got an issue here, we got some bad damage. I'm not gonna just sit on my ass until tomorrow morning, I'm going to act on it, you know?
stress.
Overnight, but that's what I would do, I think. Some of you know me well enough to.
In that same clause, you were going to, one of the action items, you were going to supply us with the insured values for the mutually owned vehicles. I don't think we've gotten there yet.
That's gonna be attached to this agreement if we get an agreement,
Well,
obviously.
but we'd like, we need to see those numbers prior to coming to an agreement, Stan.
Well, I don't think that we've done that yet, have we?
No.
Okay, well, we will give it to you before you sign the contract.
We'd like to see it as soon as possible.
So you want the insurance coverage in?
Yeah, what they're insured for.
Lori, can you give him the name and the number of our insurance consultant? They can call him up and they can get it
I can
themselves.
do that tomorrow.
Huh?
I can do it tomorrow or get
Right,
a copy.
absolutely.
What's
There's nothing to
what's the
hide here,
problem?
dude.
Excuse
Nothing
me?
to hide,
Dude,
yeah.
we're not being argumentative, we just were saying there was something that was committed to that we weren't being given.
Well, it's not required until the agreement is done, but
We have to review the numbers. Every single number that goes into this is an issue we have to answer to our constituents on in the town.
what's the total value of all that equipment, the 3 pieces of equipment?
Four.
No, they're 3.
Don't count the Mile A. I mean, for these purposes, what we're talking
Three,
about.
whatever,
10
fine.
cents, I remember that.
All right,
Well, before we get to, we're still kind of debating items 8C here. So are we gonna throw in a dollar amount?
no,
Or,
I put in, everybody agreed, I think, provided to the village by the town within 48 hours, period.
okay.
So they can do it if they want, they don't have to do it if they don't want.
So you don't want a figure in there where you can just go ahead and do it without letting us know?
I trust that the town is not gonna.
I'm just asking
Yes.
if that was your intent.
Yes, because the
No,
village
why
board
is
has
everything
approved
on?
this language without the 48 hours. So
No,
we were
he's
good with the
talking about
language
the
before.
threshold though, of dollars.
They approved this.
I
Okay?
mean, the idea is that if one of the vehicles goes down, we're gonna let you know. I mean, I don't think we're gonna be like, no, it's.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, if
understand.
it's, I mean, I would say that even if one of the non-jointly owned vehicles goes down, if it's something that's necessary to service somebody out in the town, we'll probably let you know that too, just to be on the, be neighborly, just to let you know that, hey, this vehicle's down. I mean, I don't see a problem with that either, but I mean, as far as the jointly owned ones, the 3 main ones.
Well, and I asked the PD, fire department, how often do you have to get quotes for repairs on equipment? Per year, we'll say.
2, 3 times maybe,
Okay.
it's significant. Yeah,
Cross our fingers and hope.
Yeah, I would
last
say,
year we had
I would say our figures would
Yeah,
match.
and those were
but-
usually those were bigger ones.
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean, it's like if you get something small, like, we gotta get a.
And we had the turbocharger replaced, or serviced on the engine a few months back, and it was $4,500.
Yeah.
So, but before that, it had been.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I just wanna say one thing, trust is great, but isn't it always safer to have something in writing?
Well, that was our point earlier, that if this, if this board changes, if we change,
Yeah.
stuff is written into contracts so that everybody going forward who views and uses a contract understands the parameters of it. That's all we're saying. Yes, so I agree with you.
well, as far as 8C, are we good with the changes that stand proposed?
Moving forward,
Okay, so what's next?
Well, does this show the insured value here?
That should be right in.
You got the deck page.
Okay.
We have replacement value. We have replacement value. If you want more, you can step up tomorrow, we can look
All
at it.
right, sounds good.
Okay.
Did you provide the deck page?
Yeah.
Okay, what does it say?
It's a $6 million, it's all the bodily injury, personal
No,
injury.
for the individual,
It's got every vehicle listed,
okay,
what their value is,
what is it?
and we have replacement cost on everything. If you look at the far right column, it says replacement cost or actual cash value. So each vehicle has a value, original cost, new.
So it's actual replacement value.
Yes.
So they're insured for what they are worth.
They're insured for what they were purchased for.
No,
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 replacement
they're insured
cost
for
or
what they are
actual
worth,
cash value.
actual replacement value.
so I'm looking at the '06 Ford E450 Lori.
Do you have a copy of that, Lori? Do you have a copy? I can show him. Thank you, ma'am.
They're insured for 100% of their value.
For what they're worth today, basically.
Yeah.
Replacement.
That's the way every insurance,
Well, you can't
Contract.
replace a rescue squad for $27,960.
That's what it said cost new,
Oh,
doesn't it?
okay.
so let's say it gets totaled. You're gonna have to fight with the insurance company about what the actual value is if they don't agree with what your opinion is. But whatever it's worth, that's what it's insured for.
No insurance gonna just say, oh yeah, you're hurt.
You can't insure a 1995, Ford Bronco for $100,000. Nobody's gonna write that insurance. If it's worth whatever it's worth when you junk it, when it's total.
Yeah, so if the blue, you're saying like if the blue book value is 25 grand, that's what it's insured for. And that's what we get. If we have to replace it, then we have to make up the difference. So. Anything else on wording?
Wording or numerical, I guess. I'm still having a hard time, and maybe with the whole board present tonight, you guys can explain to me specifically the mutual aid being part of the calls. And I've financially wrestled with this in my own head, that every year you guys have X amount of staffing costs, wages, benefits, whatever that is. Within that is your operations for that year. So within those operations includes call to the town, calls to the village, calls out, wherever they may end up, whether it's Lauderdale or Palmyra, right? If you go, you go. So counting the mutual aid calls to me is still something that I don't I know why you keep saying that it's in there, which is it's part of your total call volume. But to use it as a baseline of cost sharing, to me, I can't wrap my head around why it's included in there.
Can I take a shot at this?
Well, let me say something. Back to the point, we're a customer. And if the chief over there wants to send the ambulance to Elkhorn or whatever, we're just a customer over
Right?
here. So I've got a real hard time with this too, and I've talked to other departments that shook their head when I mentioned this share cost for mutual aid. They've never heard of such a thing.
Well, let me try to tackle that. Mutual aid comes in here to the village. It comes to you in the town. The cost of getting that mutual aid involves a trade-off where we will help our fire department that handles all of us to go elsewhere so that people will come in. The best example was the fire at the chicken farm, where you had 12 different departments come in here and help you with that. They come in here because we have mutual aid agreements and we provide the same service when we're needed. So it benefits the town, it benefits the village. And so, I guess there could be a way to track the number of mutual aid calls that came into the town versus the village. That seems to me to be a bit of overkill. You benefit from mutual aid, the village benefits from mutual aid. It's a cost of the fire department in order to provide you with the best service that the town can get. That's the best way I can explain it. I don't know if you have a better way of explaining it. Nope.
So within that, I'm assuming that you put together a budget and you have a staff cost, right? And for 5 years running, you run, I'm using a number, 30 mutual aid calls out. Quite frankly, I care about what's coming in, but for the purposes of this calculation, whatever is going out is the part that's counting. So if you're running on average 30 mutual aid calls every year, that's built into your staff cost. So that staff cost, that's the part, if we're boiling all this down, if Paul's staffing 12,000 hours a year, whatever that number is, and that includes both sitting idle, going to village calls, going to town calls, and going to mutual aid calls, that number is already included in what the operational expense of that department is. So to divide the town and village only and then add on the rest of it, it's already part of the whole. The 20 mutual aid calls are already part of your staff costs. If you, I don't know if it was 2 meetings ago or 3 months ago, whatever it was, we had the conversation about if you get to a point where at the end of a year, you're right up against the wall of your budget and the village board says, I'm using this paraphrasing, says, your budget's your budget, stay within it.
Yep.
You're obviously then dictated to village calls and town calls. Mutual aid calls become that a la carte piece of the puzzle. So if your operational costs, the $1.024 million includes staffing, period, that budgetary cost, if we're dividing it by the number of calls, to me should be representative of the calls within the community, because it's just part of that staff cost, whether it's overtime, straight time, Saturdays, Sundays, Tuesdays, Christmas, whatever, like all of those costs, holiday double pay, time and a half, all of those things are already part of this big whole budget. So from that perspective, using mutual aid calls, which really is kind of random, I mean, you don't know if you're gonna get 1 or 100.
With your example, that, it would be a great example if there were no variable costs. In other words, if everybody was salaried, and if, I mean, we got paid on call. We don't know, if there are 1,000, calls out of our jurisdiction, we're paying a lot more money. And the benefit to the town is the fact that they will come to you, our outside communities will come to you. And it's not a huge number. It really, we shouldn't be, trying to micromanage this tiny little stuff.
It's $50,000.
For how many calls were there? I think there were 13 calls.
Right, I understand them,
I don't think 13 calls cost you
it's
$50,000.
$22,000, if you take the mutual aid costs out and you do the calculation on $1 million budget, it's $50,000.
Okay.
It changes it by 1%.
The other thing you have to remember is when we send equipment out on a mutual aid, we have people that come in to backstaff our
But
equipment.
I completely.
So there are additional costs.
I completely understand that, but that's included in your budgetary number. So a follow-up to that would be is if there's variables up because of mutual aid, are we gonna get a 2026 refund at the end if you're under budget? Because there is nothing in this agreement, point blank period, currently, that says what that annual cost is. You've given us emails, it's not in here. The old agreement had a 3-year outlook, we've all argued points of that, I completely understand your perspective of forecasting 3 years out. 2 things, one is the budget for 2026 is not included in this language anywhere whatsoever. Number 2, the number that you've given us, is that something that because the budget hasn't been passed is potentially gonna go down? These are all the financial things that we need to know, because we're looking at a $225,000 increase in the cost of this service. It's 25% of our budget. So it's a.
low.
We can argue the merits of whether it's low or high. My point is we've got $1 million budget and this increase is a 25% increase.
I get
So
it.
try to suck that up if it's an $8 million budget and you're looking at $2.5 million. Where's it gonna come from? It's the same pucker factor for you guys on that side as it is for us. So,
And you're right about you're absolutely right about that number. We've kind of been telling you for the last couple meetings, that number is very likely to change. And I understand that gives everyone heartburn because we're trying to do a calculation that's going to, as you stated, cost potentially a lot of money. So I know we're doing our due diligence to have as many meetings as possible, as quickly as we can, to get that number where we think it's actually going to be. So I will answer that, right away to say, you are right, that's not the final number. So
I completely anticipated that or hoped that, but there needs to be a clear dialogue between both the village board and the town board, as well as the village residents and the town residents on what this actually means, right? You guys had a $350,000 not levy increase, referendum that failed 70-30. And you're essentially asking us to pick up 2/3 of that right now, and you've already moved the other third of it onto water bills. Like, the math is the math, I get it, 100% understand where it's going and where it's coming from. Whether the village residents understand that is a numerical peanut under the helmet, that's up to you to decide how that information is disseminated. My concern is that this agreement doesn't reference any sort of anything, and to the point of variabilities up for costs. 100% understand how that works. Whether it's overtime, my world, right? Water main breaks, sewer backups, all that stuff's overtime, but it's included in my annual budget based off of trends. So from that standpoint of things, if your budget includes trended wages, the number is the number, and mutual aid, quite frankly, doesn't entirely matter because that number is based on trends. And the next year, when you say, okay, well, we ran 22 calls in 2024, last year we ran 145, maybe we should up our number, which makes our staff costs go up, which means that in 2027, our budgetary amount goes up as well. And to that point, there's zero forecast whatsoever within this 2-year agreement that I understand why the village wants a capital plan for that, but there isn't any language whatsoever that says if we're going up by 20% this year between your budget, that I understand we're not covering all of, and what you're asking for in 2026, is it gonna be 1.2 million instead of 0.2 million in 2027? Because that's essentially what you're asking us to sign on for at this point, without any forecasting, like what was included in the previous contract when it was 3 years, there was a forecast, right? Granted, things change, again, I'm not arguing the points of what has changed and what the costs are. My point is that if we have no dart at the wall, from our staffing and financial standpoint, how do we plan for 2027 at this point as well?
So your point is, you have nothing to say about the budget.
Absolutely nothing to say.
We have an absolute template or rubric in terms of what the percentage of the budget will be.
Correct.
You have a 2-year contract. You can opt out at 1 year. That's your comfort level. I don't think that representing any municipality, whether I be representing you or the village or anybody, I let anybody, any contract community have anything to do with the budget. And your saving grace is a very short contract and you have a very quick out. So I don't know how to react to you other than, you know what it was last year. I mean,
But that's
you know what it was.
That's an unfair comment to our constituents, because you're doubling, in 1 year, you're doubling our rate. And
Right.
then you're sitting there, and no offense, I'm not trying to create an argument, you talk about, let's not micromanage everything.
Okay.
We owe micromanagement to our township residents
No,
because of the double
I
of the
understand.
rate, okay? And just to let you know, I've done some research. How do you answer the fact that no other fire district in the area, and we've talked to every single one of them, we continue to talk to them,
Okay.
has mutual aid in their contract as a cost to their customers? None of them do. In fact, all of them couldn't believe it was being asked for. Okay?
Well, the
How do
answer
you
is
address that?
they're dumb.
Well, I
the answer is,
sincerely doubt that the leaders of all these fire districts are dumb, Stan, and I don't know that that's very
I mean,
professional.
I represent a whole bunch of them. I represent Western Lakes. I mean, well, of course, they're all under contract.
So are you calling me, well, let me not say that.
Oh, Brad?
No. I
No,
wasn't gonna
I'll say it to his face, no, he's a good guy. But the bottom line is, this is what it is. We're at the 11th hour.
We don't know if that's the case because we haven't been given, you're asking us to trust that the budget needs to go from 700 and some thousand this year to 1,046,000 or whatever it is this year, and do it on trust. That's not what our residents want us to do, okay? Western Lakes increase for this year, for 26 over 25, is 7.15%.
I know.
Overall. not 45.3%, which is what you're asking the town to take.
But we've already
Let me-
talked about why, the reason, you're not comparing
You've talked
apples to
about it,
apples.
But you have, no, we
You
haven't
know,
talked
you're not
about
even,
it.
you're not even close. Western Lakes has been a career department for 30 years.
We haven't
We
talked
just
about
went
it.
career.
You've talked about it, but until we see
thought we
where
had.
is that 300 some thousand being spent, until we see that line item detail, we don't know.
Well, the fact of the matter is, you guys have been getting a bargain for a long time. And you're gonna have to do your homework, and you're gonna have to, I mean, we'll
We
give
are
you
doing our
every
homework.
little bit of information that we have. If you don't like it, go elsewhere. But this is where we're at right now.
So is that where, is the board here, and I don't mean any disrespect, I respect every single one of you, but is the board gonna talk at all, or does Stan run the board?
I got a question for you.
No
So-
disrespect there, but all we've heard is Stan and Paul,
A little bit.
a little bit of Paul, but mostly
Well, I
Stan.
can interject something. When Elkhorn comes to the town of Palmyra for mutual aid, do they charge the town? Okay, so that's the idea of mutual aid, right? You scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. Why do you think you don't need to pay for
But
it?
they should wash pretty closely by the end of the year.
It's
mutual aid
never
in,
gonna be a
mutual aid
wash.
out.
But it's
If
part
there's
of
always
the
gonna be
total
an
cost.
inequity
My question is
Josh has
part,
already addressed that it's
it's
built in.
part of the total calls for service. So if we're trying to figure out the percentage of calls that the town, that are the towns in the village, what are we supposed to do with the mutual aid? That's my question, because I'm the one that's doing the
Well, how
chart.
does every other district in the area handle it then?
I have no idea.
Because well, do your homework too then, no offense, Penny, but.
Every
we have
district you've
talked to
talked
them.
about is a multi-jurisdictional district, not a single municipal fire department.
Let me say this.
Lake Country, Western Lakes,
Okay, you pick
Eagle.
Whitewater services several other communities. They don't charge for mutual aid. It's 206,000, correct me if I'm wrong, go by memory, for the town of Whitewater.
Which
They
is
have-
larger than the town of Palmyra.
Correct.
They corrected it to 201,000 is what the town of Whitewater pays for their fire and EMS too.
201,000. There's 1,800 and some people in the town, which is 400-ish, 500-ish over us. Divide that out per person, I don't know, what does that come out to? What's do you know the average cost?
The state of Wisconsin, average cost for fire and EMS services per resident is $216 per resident. The budget we're being presented with, $1,046,000, our share being 47 to 49%, somewhere in there, works out to $396,000, double the state average.
I just have a question, you guys are talking about Whitewater. Didn't Whitewater just pass a referendum to increase the city of Whitewater to increase for their fire department and for their police department? That was the city, so the city residents were taking that on. I
But
mean,
the
I
whole
can't
question
say
on
anything
this
about
comes
the
out to
town.
call volume. Then why are we using call volume at all? I guess, you know, I mean, mutual aid is part of the total cost. If we're trying to calculate what portion of that is the town and what portion of that is the village, I mean, we're arguing about 25 calls, basically.
What'd you say
22
the
that were
amount was?
split.
What was you said, Josh had an amount about
50,000.
50 for all of us, but half of it, your half
Split.
would be
It's 25.
25? Okay. Is that approximate?
Ballpark, yeah.
So can I just address that last statement you made? So if our average per household is, what'd you say, 300?
Per resident.
Per resident is
396,000, give or take.
$396 per person.
What did I say, thousand? Sorry, $396.
So what you want to do is to lower the cost per person in the town and increase the cost per person in the village. That's what you want to do.
No, I'm comparing the average cost statewide
Yeah,
to what the average cost based on the new budget would be.
right. And so if you reduce yours, it will increase the residents in the village.
Unless the overall number gets smaller.
Yes.
Unless you have control and say, we're not going to pay the people here as much as they need, and we're gonna lower the whole budget.
And I think that was a point that we were talking about when you said that there was a large increase, and why I'm frustrated by the fact that, you know, we've kind of been talking about this for weeks. We've had a clear change in our operations, and I know that all three of you know that, and we've discussed it, and we've had great discussions. We don't have a choice to go back, you know, we can't go back to the lower costs of 10 years ago when we were a full volunteer department. You know, we're working hard on bringing back, but I just, to your point, I do understand and respect what you're saying related to the size of the jump. But I know we've already kind of talked to this, you know, talked to this point over and over again about the big jump is because of the 2-minute response time and the career people that you now are receiving. That's why there's this such a large jump in the, you know, in the fees that you are being asked to pay versus even 5 years ago. There's been a complete change.
Let me ask you one question, because I said it, not you specifically, the seven of you. At what point in time does this become financially insoluble to you? Because I know that there was conversation about 3 months ago about your police department, and everybody on this board was for the police department if it was affordable. At what point in time does that same focus get shifted on fire and EMS? Because we met in January, and everybody that was here at that point in time said, yes, we understand that as a community of Palmyra, the village and town together, we need to look at what those alternative service models may look like because of the cost of running the department. Like, that's the question I have. Whitewater's running a $3 million budget with 2,000 calls a year. We're running a $1 million budget for 200 calls a year, 250.
But you gotta remember, Whitewater has full-time staff that are there as career.
I understand.
We did not, and now that model has changed.
That's the jump.
I understand that, we've gone through that, and I understand that even though 2025 was budgeted, that there were budget allocations for public safety officers included to cover part of that. That's what we've been told. The additional staff to stay at 3, we've been told is a staff of 3 for the fire department within this $1,042,024, whatever it is.
The proposed.
Correct. So if it's maintaining the staffing level, I have a hard time believing that $250,000 worth of staff wages were being brought out of the police department to equivalent staff at EMS costs. That's 3 full-time employees, which I don't know that you had, I don't know, because like this is the number nerd part that I thrive on, to not see the budget comparison of where those individual changes are being made is really hard for me to wrap it around a theory that $270,000 or $280,000 is the shift of PSOs to EMTs or firefighter basic, whatever role. Like, that's 2.5 full-time employees' wages, benefits all year long. I don't know that you had 2 full-time PSOs.
Honey, we did, didn't we?
Sorry, I'm trying to do calculations, I
Yes,
missed the
I
question.
can answer that question. We have 2 on at a time. We did have 2, but it has been a transition too, so to your point, that just didn't happen in this past year. So you are correct when you state that we didn't just make the change from 2 full-time PSOs, and you'll have to forgive me because you know that there was a gap in time of when I was here full-time versus back full-time, but there has been a transition to that, and we have not been full-staffed, and we talked about this from the fire department standpoint, with the 2 full-time staff members until partially through this year even, because of the transition that the village was still making from the PSO model to the police department fire division model, which we're using now, and then still mixing in some PSO for hybrid, which is, you know, something that I even mentioned to Frank yesterday. We had a call in the town. You were able to get PSOs on that call along with the fire department, so for extra hands. So you are getting that as well still today. But to your point, yes, there has been a transition, and it didn't just occur last year, it's occurred over a few years, so.
I get that, and whether the budget was short budgeted for 25 then? Like, because it's a $250,000-$60,000 change in 1 year from 25 budget to the ballpark budget we've been proposed so far. I mean, that's a $250,000. So that's why I'm saying 2 full-time in 1 year transition out. I mean, if that's what you're saying your staffing model actually was that you had, you've deleted a police department shift, which I know you have, and you've moved everybody over to fire and EMS instead, well, like where the other people went, for shift 2, or however that works,
I see what you're saying.
to me, to be able to drill into those and quantify, again, because whether Stan agrees with us or doesn't, or with you or doesn't, or Jonathan or any of us, at some point in time, $250,000 has to be voted on by 1,200 people that aren't us. And to be able to either effectuate that dialogue and say, this is where the money's going, without having anything to go from, that's the hard part. And now it's a month from where we were before, 1 month closer, to have to make that.
And Stan, you made the comment, well, if we don't like it, go somewhere else. Okay. And I don't wanna get into a discussion, because that's taking us down an avenue. We firmly believe the best way for this local fire department district to continue being feasible is the town and village to work together, okay? But based on your comment, I would just throw back the question, well, what would the board look at, and how would you do it if we did go somewhere else?
Maybe you have to downsize.
That changes your equation as
Maybe
well.
downsize
Which you don't
immediately.
want, which I can guarantee you'd rather not do. We'd rather not do it too, but until we see the line item details, until we see exactly what we're paying for, and if we believe that it's necessary, we need to see that information. One of the things that was important we talked about last time is Mike. Mike, we talked about, you hadn't done it yet, but you said you would. Have you made progress on plotting the all the calls and the time of the day that they are, to see if there's a bell curve during certain areas where there's potential savings on a third shift or something like that? Where are you on that? You had said you would do that type of plotting.
I'm in the process of doing that.
Okay, so it's being worked on?
It is being worked on, yeah.
Thank you, we
So
appreciate that.
It doesn't really, if we're gonna stay with reasonable staff, we're already at the minimum with two staff persons, so it won't really affect anything as far as the shift change, but we'll be able to document it at least.
Just looking at all options here.
I understand.
Can I speak to that, because I want you guys to understand what our minimum staffing requirements are too, and I think you do. Just to reiterate, we can't drop below 2 by state law, so we have to have those 2. So when you're looking at the numbers that you already have, and you can calculate what 2 a day, and you've been provided the salary of what firefighters make, very low, $50,000 a year, lower to mid-50s starting, and then some of our chief level make around $60,000. You can calculate that out, 6 full-time at that level, then we provided you, what the average benefit costs, WRS pension, that we're operating at that minimum now.
Did you say that was already in the 25 budget? Josh, last time, did you say it was already in?
The bare minimum, yeah.
From conversations that previous director had given us was that you guys were staffing 3 in 2025.
And the
24/7.
proposal in the current budget includes a third 24/7, 365 that has not been vetted and gone through by the board, but there is a third person built into that for 2026. I'm sorry if I misspoke and said, but right now we're at 2025. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the fire department is utilizing a third when we can, but that was not built into the budget for 365 24/7.
Correct, and that's typically a daytime shift or half a shift, and part-time staff.
And totally appreciate that, and I think we all would love to have 3 and not just 2, but I think the plotting might tell us that all we want to do is see it, just see where there's up, but we're just speculating until we see the line item details, so we know exactly where the increases are, and we can have a chance to review those and things, so.
Some of the increases are all the full-time people are now getting additional benefits.
This is all anecdotal,
Nope,
and I'm
nope,
not
I
disagreeing.
understand that.
It's all anecdotal until we see the actual numbers, right? So, and,
Excuse me, Rob, what exact numbers have you been waiting for? That I'm hearing from Michelle that you're not getting.
the budget numbers,
Our 2026 budget.
budget, with the line items that shows 25 for line, all of 2025, what the cost was, 2026, what the cost is, so we can go down and see, okay, here's an increase, it was for this, and this. Which is the due diligence we owe our residents.
Yes, and we are still working through our 2026 budget.
Do you have an idea when you'll, I mean, we've started our budget process,
So
and.
we have to, yeah.
Well, no, I'm not saying you haven't. We've started it, and we made very good progress in our first meeting. There's still a lot of holes in it. But at what point will you be, I mean, hopefully you're not waiting, I mean, I think our request has been for preliminary, just so we can start the review process. I mean, hopefully you're not waiting until the very last approved budget before you even share anything with us. Because, you know,
We have an open records request. Lori, did you send that to them yet, or no?
Stan and I talked this morning, that was gonna be a decision that was gonna be made tonight.
Okay.
No, we were gonna give them the most preliminary,
Yeah,
tonight, weren't we?
the stuff that was given to us last Thursday.
Yeah.
I
That's
thought
what you
that
have.
it was gonna be discussed tonight.
No, give it to them, yeah. I mean, it's absolutely not anywhere near final, just like yours.
Sure,
So-
we're gonna have another budget meeting next Monday.
Lori,
And
that's
as
the
you-
one
as
that
you
Those numbers will
update us-
probably change next Monday.
And after
And then
you,
you'll ask for another.
will you be able to share it with us every time you update us, so we can
you have the one with the 11.
look at this?
Our meetings are, you can also come to the meetings if that works as well.
But sitting here listening to the numbers versus having the document that we can plot through.
Oh, I understand that, I'm just saying that
No, I understand, that's why I
the
came
meetings
tonight.
are open.
We'll look
Yeah,
at
that's
that
why I
anyway.
came tonight.
Well, and we do have handouts at budget meetings, and they have been open in public. So-
No disagreement there. But,
Before you walk out here tonight, you'll have what?
and then.
How about tomorrow morning?
Or tomorrow morning,
Tomorrow
okay.
morning is fine.
Excuse me.
Tomorrow is fine. Tomorrow is fine. And then just regular.
I'll go
updates.
make a copy myself.
Regular updates to it would be appreciated as well.
Yeah, we have.
But going back, I hope the board recognizes Stan's comment about, well, if you don't like it, go somewhere else, basically. I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting. If we did that, that's a huge impact to the town, to the village. And I hope the village isn't thinking we don't have that option.
No, we're very aware of that. We discussed this amongst ourselves just the other night.
And like I said, our preference, I'm speaking for me, but I think these gentlemen have shared the same in the past. We want to work together and make this work because we think it's best for the whole community, town and village together. But I guarantee if we have when we have a meeting with our shouldn't guarantee anything, so. I think there would be some pushback from a certain level of our community that would want us to look seriously elsewhere based on the cost. So let's please keep that in consideration when we're making comments. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. That's all I'm saying. I have a question for you based on the earlier meeting that I attended, maybe one or two others about us. In your meeting, talking about a potential new firehouse, okay, renovating or potentially building a new one. You talked in that meeting several times, most of you did, about wanting and needing, and I totally agree with you, needing to look at all options because your constituents are going to want to know that you're making the right decision. Okay, I heard options as far as renovating, remodeling, building new, potentially getting a good deal on a steel frame building, all of these great options. What I didn't hear, and I believe it absolutely needs to be an option that the village looks at. And we actually agreed in our joint meeting back in January or February, whenever the meeting was, I think it was January 15th or something like that. We actually jointly agreed that we would jointly go out to other fire districts and say, okay, for the sustainability of this department, of this fire department, what are the options long-term? I'm not talking in the next year or two, for a decision in the next year or two. But I think an option that all of our constituents want to hear is, okay, is there a way going the route that a lot of communities have and looking at cooperating, co-oping with other districts, whether it's Western Lakes, Lake Country, Whitewater, whoever it might be. Is that gonna be on the table as an option that the village board looks at for their constituents? Because we would very much like, with the village, as we said in January, thought we had an agreement, that we would jointly go out and look long-term. By long-term, I'm talking 3, 4, 5 years down the road, to see if this is sustainable long-term as a small community.
I mean, yes.
But I didn't hear that discussed.
I don't think it's much of a discussion to be on that subject. There isn't anybody in our